Hey BookTube, it's Sheila. As you can see by my little chicks and bunnies here, it's springtime. But we're not here about spring. We are here to talk about the Sorcerer Heir, the very last book in the Heir Chronicles. And oh my goodness. So the Enchanter Heir definitely did not finish the story. You need this to finish the story. This is thicker than all the other books. It's quite the story. There seems to be so many different things going on. They are all answered. It takes such a long time. There are some clues for some things. Some things don't seem to be clues, and I certainly didn't guess what was going to happen. Some things I could have guessed sooner, but sometimes I'm not observant enough. Some things I definitely did guess, and I was right. So admittedly, this does have some predictability, but that's fine. It all fit, and I think it was fitting, suitable, thesaurus. So even though this book is called The Sorcerer Heir, both the Enchanter Heir and the Sorcerer Heir kind of cover both Jonah and Emma's growth and character establishment, and that's okay. This one, I guess, did focus a little bit more on Emma, but honestly, doesn't really make a difference since it's about both of them. Again, we have all of our old characters, Jack, Ellen, Seth, Maddie, Alicia. No Leander or Linda. That's okay. But oh my gosh, there were so many different things that had to be answered. So one of my favorite basic things about the entire series is that it has lots and lots of chapters, which means it's very easy to get to the next chapter to be able to stop reading for a little while. I don't like stopping reading, but to have an ending point is such a nice thing. Like this book had 55 chapters. That's an awful lot of chapters. So some of them weren't very long. Most of them weren't very long, which gives you a nice little stopping place to read. I like that. The other thing that she did with this book, and I believe she did it with the Enchanter Heir as well, was she switched perspectives a lot. Even when Emma and Jonah are in the same room, they're doing the same thing, say they're in the band or what have you. And then the chapter changes over, and then it's Emma's perspective. And with the perspective changes, she's still very considerate about how each character thinks. Emma still thinks about the blues. She still thinks about guitars. Jonah's always thinking about how he can feel someone else's feelings. She's very conscientious of how much her characters are their own people, so they have their own viewpoint of things. Emma looks at things from a blues point of view, so that's the way she sees the world sometimes. It's just really nice to see an author do that rather than just kind of whitewashing everybody, but they still have their own dialogue. So this book starts out with essentially a recap, but from a different perspective of the end of the Enchanter Heir. And then it does, in the next chapter, it just kind of does a skip forward of like a couple hours. So you really have to remember what happened in the Enchanter Heir to understand exactly what's going on in chapter 2. But hopefully you read it anyway, so that's not a problem. It's hard to say a lot more about this book just because it's so similar to Enchanter Heir, since it's more of a continuation of the exact same story rather than an arc like the rest of the series has been. But it was quite well written. Some of it was a little bit odd, I guess, in that sometimes accusations were just kind of thrown around and there was a lot of dialogue about why we need to do this and sometimes I couldn't quite follow the train of thought to why we got to the end result that we did, just in whatever conversation. Sometimes it just seemed a bit odd to me, but it wasn't odd enough that it made no sense, so it's okay. So I think this book was about a 4 out of 5 for me. I did really like it. There were some odd little things like the conversation things. and how it took a long time to understand everything. Like, as a reader, sometimes I want to know what's going on. I want to be the god above who knows exactly what's happening, and the characters don't. And this really like led you on. You had to wait, you had to read, you had to get there, and sometimes that makes me speed through a book a little bit too fast, which honestly, maybe that's why the conversations were a little bit confusing to me. Doesn't matter. I was happy to reread the other four. I was quite happy to finally read the last entry in the Heir Chronicles. So that's finally off my to-do list. Anyway, let me know down below in the comments what you thought of the series, whether you agree with my review or not. I mean, I would love to have some conversations back and forth, because who doesn't want to talk about books? Anyway, BookTube, that's it for me for now. Keep reading.